The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, a very, very strange year that's not even half over, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes do two reviews of Kennerspiel-nominated games, The Crew and Cartographers. Then the Dukes take a look back on their review of Detective in their Dukes Double Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And also Alex.
And this
I
is
am present.
What?
Sorry, I interrupted you and destroyed the flow of the show. I'm also present on this episode. Continue.
All right. Yep, this is episode 227. Why not, Alex? You know what I mean? Why not? At this point, all is lost. Why not? This is episode 227, titled North, Sleuth, East, and Quest. That's right. You heard me correctly. I'm not having a stroke. North, Sleuth, East, and Quest. That name, title from the name father, Steve O'Rourke, referencing the cardinal directions there, but also the Sleuth for Detective, a modern crime board game, and then Quest for Cartographers. That works out. And for The Crew, right? Quest for Planet 9 is the subtitle of The Crew.
That's correct. Yep. It incorporates all of them. It was a slam dunk.
Good job, Steve. I knew there was a reason why we recognize that you're good at naming things, because you are, and you named a lot of our episodes.
You have. And we've given you an immediate disadvantage because of that. And even with that disadvantage, this was still the clear pick, I think.
I believe in the sports world, they call it a handicap, Alex. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but that's...
What? Sports? No, those were something... That was a 2019 thing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. But Anyway, we get help naming all of our episodes and also getting input for some of the game topics we'll be talking about over on our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008. And we have some runners-up for naming the episode, which we will give you at the end of the episode. Well, Alex, I guess this is where I would normally ask you, how are things going over there?
Well, so let's talk broadly and personally. Well, let's see. Let's talk personally and then broadly.
Sure.
On the personal side of things, in the past week and a half, I've been doing Whole30. Yet again, week and a half in. And then just before this episode, I decided it would be a really good idea to go do a really hard workout. So I'm sitting here in this chair, Sean. I'm feeling a little lightheaded, a little loopy, little off, and probably not the best state to be recording a podcast that goes out to so many people. But hey,
good.
You take what you can get. You get what you pay for.
All right. Well, let's see how this goes, Alex. I'm excited.
How are you, Sean?
I'm good. I'm still incredibly busy. Still busy. Not much has changed on that front. We've opened the office back up, although I am still continuing to work from home because I'm surprisingly much more productive at home, even with all the craziness that goes on around the house here. What it comes down to is I'm much more willing to work like 10, 11-hour days if I'm here at home, which is not great. I don't want this to continue happening, but yeah.
How about a Dukes of Diet update, Sean?
Oh, this is bad. This is very bad. So I've been saying for the last couple of weeks that I've been hovering around the 260 mark, maybe like 260, 262, back and forth. I've been consistently hovering between 266 and 268. So not good. And last night, Raquel asked me, hey, she had to take Mariah to go drop something off. And she said, hey, do you want me to pick up Filiberto's? Which is we have so much good New Mexican food here in Albuquerque. Filiberto's is not New Mexican food. It's Mexican food. And it's like really greasy and really gross and just not good for you. And it's disgusting and you feel terrible afterwards, but man, it's so good. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll have a steak and egg burrito. Sure. Why not? And then afterwards, I felt so bad and so disgusting. And I'm like, all right, I think this is the point where I'm just going to keep gaining weight unless something changes. So yeah, this has not been a good situation. And I've been working out less here at home. Part of the reason is I'm working extra hours. So things need to change. So here's what I'm going to commit. I will have a very good Dukes of Diet report on the next episode, and I need people out there to hold me accountable. Alex, I need you to hold me accountable.
I mean, I ask you every episode. I bring it up, so that's part of it.
No, I know. But I'm just saying I've kind of been like, oh, what can I do? It's coronavirus. I can't do my normal thing. I need to stop making that excuse. So here we go.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
This is kind of the new normal, it seems, for you for now. It's been long enough. So yeah. I will tell you, Sean, Whole30 is an option. It does work, but man, is it tough.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a little rough. Tonight's dinner will be some sort of meat and veggies with some sort of oil sauce, and that's about it. That's what I got going.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, it'll be fine.
I like veggies.
It'll be fine. It'll be lovely, but it not ideal. Anyway, we've danced around the broader thing for a chunk of time here, Sean, and this episode is coming out after kind of the peak of the conversation, right? Which seemed to just explode over this past weekend. Let me pause here for a quick moment, because there are going to be some listeners for whom these podcasts are an escape. For better or for worse, they consider this an escape. If you fall into that boat, there will be a timestamp. You should look at the timestamp and skip ahead to that. That being said, I don't think we'd be doing our jobs as folks with some sort of a voice in the board game media space if we didn't say something about this. So, this is your warning. Use the timestamp. Go to that point if you don't want to hear us fumble around and dive into this issue. Just throwing that out there. So,
and if you're listening to this like a year from now, we're recording this on June 4th, 2020. So if that doesn't tell you anything, go on, Alex.
Oh, sorry. I always assume everyone's listening to it immediately the first day it comes out.
Yep.
Yeah. So where to start with this, Sean? Because there have been so much going on in this already insane, crazy, bizarre, unexpected, memorable year, and we're not even halfway through, and you already know more chaos is in the future. Boy, I will tell you, as of the time of this recording, about to be in hour and 22 minutes under curfew once more here in St. Louis. Not surprising. This was the flashpoint for a lot of similar protests and similar things that cropped up around the Mike Brown case in Ferguson, which is right next door and kind of part of this metro area. Downtown St. Louis, that area where I used to live, that's been hit fairly hard by this situation. Sean, you are I don't know how Albuquerque has been. I know certainly there have been protests in the past around police violence. I don't know how that situation's been in the city this time around.
There have been protests downtown, protests in Nob Hill where Empire Board Game Library is. There's been some, I think there's been some clashes, but nothing significant. Our mayor has not imposed a curfew. They're not asking for National Guard deployment. So we've had protests, but nothing like what's happening out there or in other cities.
Yeah. I mean, you see some of the video from Santa Monica or some of these other places that I've been in my life, and it just tells you kind of the time we're in. So let me jump into this point, which I would hope would be obvious, but that was a disgusting thing what happened to George Floyd. Completely and utterly absurd, out of line, complete abuse of power. I'm glad that officer's been charged. It should have happened sooner. I think that's something that probably is just about unanimous, or pretty much should be. I mean, it's so rare to see a case where even fellow officers are coming out and condemning the actions of an officer. I know this from being in TV news for so long. It was impossible to get the police union there to criticize just about anything an officer did. regardless of whether it led to criminal charges or what the case was. So absurd and indicative, along with several other incidents of I think a systemic problem in this country. I know a systemic problem in this country, and it's the anger and the rage and all of that is 100% understandable. And I will say this too, Sean. I'm coming from a place of privilege 6 ways to Sunday. White, straight, male, came from a reasonably well-off family, all of it. All of those things add up. So I just genuinely don't know what that experience is like, to not know if you're going to have a fair shot, to not know if you're going to have your life threatened or be put in danger based on a part of you. I don't know what that's like. I can imagine it would be completely infuriating to see the same things happening again and again and again and again and again. And it's awful and it's terrible, and I completely understand. I let me be clear. I don't completely understand because I don't have that full perspective, but I can empathize with the why. I'll put it that way. Sean, how have you kind of taken in some of this?
So when it comes to fake violence, I'm not squeamish. I'm not squeamish when it comes to movies, video games, but when it comes to real, like, actual violence, like, I can't watch it. Like, whether it's journalists being beheaded overseas or like terrible car, like, I just can't handle it. I forced myself to watch the video. And it was really difficult. And to echo somewhat of what you said, my name is Sean Ramirez, Irish first name, Hispanic Mexican last name. I'm 3/4 Chicano, whatever you want to call it. Although I'm very white presenting. Like,
you've never identified yourself kind of with that side of things. We've discussed this before on the show.
Well, I mean, I pass as white pretty easily. And so I've probably benefited quite a bit from that. I've had some incidents of discrimination, like schoolyard stuff, and really just nothing of any major significance. So I would say that even things that like my father has experienced or my grandparents have experienced, like, I haven't had anything close to that. I mean, there was segregation against Mexicans here in New Mexico when, like, my father was growing up, like, and before then. So yeah, it's pretty disheartening to see what I had thought was incremental change for the better over the last 50 years. And even if it wasn't as quick as people would like, even if it wasn't as pervasive as people would have liked, it still felt like things were getting better. and but still, there's still reminders every, like Rodney King in the 90s, there's still something that's reminding people that it's still not anywhere where it needs to be. And I hope that this is an inflection point, and I hope that this is a time when actual change can occur. I think it's the NAACP that's saying, hey, here are like the 6 or 7 reasonable things that are just a start that we want to change that would improve policing and would drastically cut. I think it's like a 70% reduction in death through police intervention. 70%. And none of these things are unreasonable or out of the question. So I will say that I voted in New Mexico's primary the other day. I am normally very excited on any type of election day, whether it's general election, whether it's primary election. I like voting. I like the feel of doing your civic duty. for a whole host of reasons, but partly because of what was going on now, I was just like, what does it matter? Like, I felt so disheartened, and I can't imagine, like, the way that I feel is just a small percentage of what people of color have to deal with. And I can say, oh, you know what? I can kind of just retreat back into my own little thing, my own life, my own home. And, it's wild. Like, I feel like as every month goes on in 2020, like, it's what's next? Like, how, like, it's wild. It's just wild.
Well, and the thing is, you already know there's going to be an insane election coming up in November. You
Yeah.
already know that's coming. Like, you already knew that was going to be a thing before the year even started. And then in the context of all of this, yeah, you don't know what's going to happen in between now and then. But it's such a strange time to be alive, Sean, in so many ways. So, and this has also sparked a conversation, of course, across the board, with whether it be in companies, individuals, everywhere. And that the board game hobby is absolutely no exception to this, because, like it or not, there is a diversity problem in gaming. There has been a diversity problem in gaming for as long as I've been in the hobby. I'm sure far longer, and it continues to go on. And there have been some discussions around solutions and things to do. There have been people helping promote Black content creators during all of this.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big push for the game Rap Gods on Twitter, where basically they're taking a chunk of every copy sold and donating it towards Black Lives Matter. And that's been getting a big signal boost, and would certainly encourage people to go check that out and scoop up a copy. If that's a cause they believe in, that's I think something well worth doing. There are a lot of people matching those donations as this has gone on. Mandi from the Dice Tower has spoken up about this and said, "Hey, your silence can be deafening on this. Speak up, do better." And there have been some folks who, of course, in conversations online have made missteps in this, and it's been interesting to see the back and forth and how that's played out. I don't know what, Sean, if you have any thoughts on action items or steps or things that the board game community could or should be doing in this moment.
So I don't know necessarily about anything specific. I will say that I saw Mandi post something that was basically a very comprehensive resource for wherever you are in this. And how do I, it's broken down by your level of being an ally, where you are in your personal life. And very comprehensive in terms of like podcasts, things that you can read, things you can be doing. I think it's worth checking out. And if I could probably link it. I can link it in the show notes.
Yeah, I think you probably should. Yeah, and I think all of those are great. And I know from the publishing side, being able to open up more doors for worthy game designers of color, I think is something that there needs to be more thought towards and effort towards. Helping support with review copies, content creators of color. There's all sorts of areas of this that can be worked on. But just from a personal space, being more conscious of that in how the community is. Invite more people to the table. Invite more diversity to your table. That's a small step for folks who are interested in playing. Open that door and let people in. I think that's a small step that everyone can at least be conscious of or take into account as they look to what they can do in their small way on this, at least within the hobby. There's certainly bigger fish to fry when you talk about police brutality, but building some of those connections and building a more diverse, inclusive hobby, I think is something that's really important, really important. So, yeah, Sean, I don't know if there's much more I have to say on this. Anything you wanted to add?
No, probably, but I don't. Yeah, like I said, it's just wild, and it's been hard explaining things to Chewie. But at the same time, she's even though Raquel is Hispanic and I'm Hispanic. Chewie got my white genes. Like she's going to grow up as this little light-haired, white girl. But hopefully Raquel and I, and Mariah, we can all teach her empathy and understanding and compassion. And I mean, I think that's the biggest thing right now, like compassion and empathy and realizing that, hey, you may not fully understand what it's like to be a person of color and that Black lives matter. And you don't need to point out that all lives matter. It just doesn't need to happen.
Yeah, it struck me as a silly retort, at least in my mind. In any case. All right. That all being said, time to go to reviews, I guess. I don't know how to transition out of this, Sean. It's impossible. It's an impossible task. So be better, do well. That's about all I have to add in this moment. I'm going to try and be doing a lot more listening in the coming weeks and months and years ahead. That's sort of my pledge on that. And I anticipate, words are one thing, actions are a much higher thing. So I'm going to be looking for actions I can do to not just have this be words coming from me. So that's kind of my commitment, my pledge, and who knows where we go from there. Sean, do we just go to a commercial break? What does this look like?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see you back after the break with a couple reviews. Well, Sean, in these tricky times, our friends at Game Toppers want to let folks know that they're still open for business. They're still doing what they can to provide some at-home gaming goodness to help people upgrade their gaming experience while they're trapped at home. So Late Pledge Manager is open on Game Toppers. They have a lot of great bundles on their website, some of which might sell out, so check it out before it gets too late. Also, mats are going to be able to be shipped out relatively soon, so if that's something you've been looking for, hey, great. Thanks to Game Toppers for supporting the podcast and for supporting gamers looking to upgrade their gaming experience.
So go visit them at GameToppersLLC.com.
In these tough times, Arcane Wonders is doing what they can to try and make sure folks can still get their gaming fix while supporting their friendly local game stores. They are offering a discount on their website, and Sean, with that discount, they're doing something pretty cool.
Yeah, so if your local game store refers you to Arcane Wonders, or if you just like to help them out, you can enter their name, city, and state in the comment section of the order, and they're going to reach out to them and send them 25% of the total purchase price. There is no reason Arcane Wonders has to do that other than realizing, hey, these stores help the community, they help our, promote our products. So this is a fantastic way that they're helping out your friendly local game store.
So check out all of their great discounts. Again, everything's 25% off. Just go to arcanewonders.com and check out all of their latest games. Also, Late Pledge is still open for Foundations of Rome. First, they did a game about building an RPG character. Now they've taken another aspect of the tabletop role-playing game experience, and they've taken their own twist on it and turned it into a game. We're talking about building a map in this case. It's a Counterspiel-nominated game. It's Cartographers. But will this map lead to a successful play experience or straight into a pit of misery? We'll tell you.
So Cartographers is a new roll and write game. It's considered a role player tale, so it's a game in the role player world. It is from Thunderworks Games, designed by Jordan Aiden, with illustration by Lucas Ribeiro and graphic design by Luis Francisco. So Alex, this is, I said roll and write. It's not technically a roll and write. It's a flip and draw or whatever, but it's all the same. So you are creating a map. There's a bunch of disposable sheets. They're two-sided. They have a 11 by 11 grid. And then there are some mountain spots, these little mountains that are drawn in certain spots. There's also some ruins. On the reverse side, there's a different map that has this big chasm. And what you're trying to do is fill this in with different terrain types. There are farms, there's water, there are villages, and there are forests. And if you do it in certain ways, you're going to score points for having it be in a certain pattern or by meeting certain conditions where a certain terrain type is next to another, etc. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to play over the course of 4 seasons, and each season has a certain amount of time. You're going to flip cards from the terrain deck, and each card's going to have a number that's going to be added together to count basically the time in the season. So once you meet or exceed that, you're done. So when you flip over a card, it's going to give you some options. It might give you a certain polyomino shape or maybe 2 polyomino shapes, so your Tetris shapes. And it may give you 1 terrain type or 2 terrain types, and then you have to pick which one you're going to draw, which terrain type it's going to be, and you're going to have to fill it in on your map wherever you want for the most part. You can't overwrite the mountain squares. You can overwrite the ruin squares, though you may not necessarily want to, and I'll explain why in a second. And you're going to keep doing this till the end of a round. And at the end of the round, you're going to score 2 objectives out of 4. So at the start of the game, you'll know there's objective A, B, C, and D, and there's multiple objectives that you're going to have throughout. But in spring, you're going to score objectives A and B. In summer, you're going to score B and C, and then C, D, and then back to D and A. In addition, at the end of a season, you're also going to score points for every coin that you have already acquired. Alex, how do you acquire coins, you ask? I'll tell you, Alex. You do that by orthogonally surrounding the mountain spaces. In addition to that, Alex is actually eating right now, and I was going to make him talk with his mouth full.
I hope you mute this, by the way.
Additionally, you can also score coins by having chosen certain shapes that have a coin with them on the terrain cards. And typically, the shapes that have coins will fill up less squares than some without. But early on, if you're scoring a bunch of coins, those are just cumulative points you're going to score every single round. Now, there are 3 special cards that might flip up when you're flipping your cards. There is the, what's it called, Alex? It's the Rift. There's a Rift card that basically can be 1 space, 1 square of any terrain type of your choice. That can come in handy. There's also the Ruins cards. Now, whenever you draw Ruins, there's no shape associated with it. There's no time associated with it. You'll flip over another card, and this next card has to be drawn such that it covers one of your Ruin spaces. And if you can't, then you could only draw a single square of your choice. And then finally, there are the ambush cards. There's 1 ambush card that you're going to shuffle into the deck at the start of the game, and it's basically goblins or trolls or something that are the spaces that can potentially generate negative points. And also, you're going to have one of your opponents fill it in on your board, so they're going to basically try to screw you up. So yeah, at the end of the game, you're going to add up all the points you've scored for each season, and whoever has the most is the winner of Cartographers. All right, Alex, what were your expectations for this Kennerspiel nominated game?
Hang on, did you mention the cards where you could get to draw on people's boards?
I sure did, Alex.
Okay, I was busy eating salmon, and it was very tasty.
The last thing I mentioned.
All right. Until your next rules explanation, my salmon bowl will have to wait. So, what were my expectations of Cartographers? Well, look, I liked Role Player a decent amount. I didn't love it. You were a bigger fan of Role Player, the game, than I was. So, this is a series that I've enjoyed and was intrigued by when I heard of another game, but it wasn't one that I was, I have to play this because it's a Role Player game. On top of that, the concept of building a map looked interesting. It looked reasonably lightweight. It didn't look like it was overly complicated. And I kept hearing about it. I kept hearing people talking about it. So I figured there's got to be something to this, right? And so I had reasonably high expectations going in just because I'd heard enough people recommend it or talk about it or enough buzz about the game. What about you, Sean?
So I purchased this game when it first came out. Actually, I think I mentioned last episode that it sat on my desk upstairs where I edit the podcast. I read the rules, and it literally sat there for months. I like the Role Player. Let me think about this. I was about to say I like the Role Player universe. It's not true. It's very generic fantasy, which isn't bad.
You liked role player the game itself. I think you gave it a 5.
Yeah. I gave it a 5, and I've played it multiple times since the review. Raquel likes it quite a bit. Have some fun with it. And I like roll and writes or flip and draws or draw and draws, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, I think I had some decently high expectations for this. And then when I saw how people were just going crazy about it online and the Kennerspiel nomination, I was like, okay, got to break this out. I have this. I've read the rules, figure it out. So those were my expectations. Now, you had mentioned, Alex, that you were pretty sure that this is something Chewy and I could do together. So one night last week, I grabbed it, hadn't played it yet. I had read the rules previously, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna need to refresh myself. And I got her all excited. Hey, Chewy, let's grab some markers. We're gonna play this game. You get to draw on a map. It's really cool. And so she got super excited. And I sat down and I was like, oh, I need to reread the rules real quick. So I skimmed them real quick. And then I laid out the cards with the objectives, and the objectives were just going to be way too much. So like one of them is like, you score 3 points for every full square that you have. Like any region that, like if it's 3x3, then you're going to score 9 points. If it's 4x4, you're going to score 12 points, etc. And I'm just like, okay, I'll try and explain that to her. And she just had glazed eyes. And then another one was like, you're going to score a certain amount of points for every farm that you have adjacent to water, but it's not adjacent to something else. And I was just like, oh boy, okay. And so I'm trying to explain the rules to her, basically thinking, ignore the objectives. You just draw what you want to draw. You pick a, no, she got super frustrated. She's like, the rules are boring. I don't like this game. The rules are boring. And she stormed off. So thanks for that, Alex.
Okay, well, my bad.
You're a terrible uncle.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm an uncle. That's so sweet. I'm happy to hear that. Aw. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be a terrible uncle, I guess, as long as I'm an uncle. So sorry about that, for one. For two, it makes sense. Yeah, the objectives, it's the basic mechanics of the game are not particularly difficult.
Yeah.
But the devil is in the details with this one. It's the objectives, it's the placement, it's playing it well is what really is the meat of this game, if
Sure.
that makes sense. So I get it, and I'm sorry. Anyway.
Yeesh.
Sean, let me give my own disclaimer here, as it's not really part of expectations, but doesn't really fit anywhere else in this review.
Hold on.
Oh.
It's not a disclaimer. We're going to call it quarantine caveat.
A quarantine caveat. I love it.
Yep.
This is because this is not a review copy. It's not that kind of disclaimer. A quarantine caveat that I have not played the physical version of this game. How I've played this game, and this will inform my review greatly, is we played with Jamie Stegmeyer's game night. He would flip out the cards and hold them up to the camera so everyone could see. And then there was a Google Sheet, a really clever Google Sheet that was created, where you could enter into different columns. Okay, M, it's a mountain space, or F, it's a farm, and it will shade those spaces in accordingly. And so you would draw on your own sheet, and in any instance where monster would come up and you need to draw on someone else's sheet, you just click one tab to the left or one tab to the right, do it on their sheet, and then kind of check what someone else did to yours. It had built-in points tracking and coin tracking. It was really well done. So it was a good implementation of the game, but it was not the physical, hand-drawn, making your own map in-person kind of thing. And you see so many personalized experiences and personalized maps. I don't have that experience. I don't have that part of things. I'm not good at drawing, so I think I'd be delighted by it in some ways, but I don't think I would get as invested in it as maybe some other folks have. But I'm just saying, I'm missing a key component of this game, a key component of the selling point of this game because of my experience. I've played it genuinely. I've played the game. I know what it's like, but I'm not coming to it from that physical perspective that Sean has. So that's my quarantine caveat. Brought to you by Sean.
And I have no such quarantine caveats because, like I said, I have the physical game. So you probably didn't get a chance to look at the rule book.
Oh, no, at no point.
Yeah, it's a fine rule book. I didn't have any major issues. There are some corner cases, like what happens if you draw a ruins and then another ruins. What happens if you draw ruins and then one of the ambushes? It handles it. It mentions it all there for you. Nothing. I mean, it's not a super complex rule set, so there wasn't much heavy lifting that this particular rule book had to do. And then I guess I would say regarding the components, since I'm the only one that could really speak to that, art is great. I like the art style that they've used. They give you a big, thick set of pads, a lot of pad of paper. Card quality is decent. They give you some golf pens with erasers on them. I wish the sheets themselves, I don't know if you've seen, Alex, or if you can see.
Kind of, yeah, I can kind of see that on webcam.
So it's supposed to kind of look like aged parchment. And it's kind of hard to see. Like the page itself is kind of darker than it needs to be. And so when you're playing with pencil, it's not impossible to see stuff, but I no one can see this except for hopefully you, Alex.
Oh, that's a lovely looking map.
Yeah, I have played it with markers. Markers are different colors. So like there's symbols for a forest. It's a bunch of little trees. I did it in green. There's hashes for fields, and you could do it in yellow and things like that. So that certainly makes it easier to see. Although there is the downside. I don't know if you can see, Alex. Do you see where there's a bunch of stuff crossed off?
Yes.
Because I made a mistake. I was supposed to fill in on a ruins, and I forgot to fill in on a ruins, and so you don't have the advantage of being able to erase the pencils. I would like to have, what I will probably do is I will probably make copies of these that are lighter and laminate them. I guess, yeah, no, I think that's fine. I like it with color. It adds a bit with the color, but the sheets are too dark. I get why they're going for it. Like I said, it's that aged parchment look. I will say this as well. This is kind of a component issue. I wish the maps were bigger, and I certainly get why they're not. One of the things I envisioned for Raquel when she played this game is I thought she was going to do this really elaborate, articulate map that was going to look like really stylized and ornamental and really cool, because she's a very artsy person. She loves to draw. She doesn't draw like she draws designs. Like it's kind of like doodling, but like really intricate stuff. She always has some art project going, and I expected her to just do some crazy stuff, and she didn't. And part of the restriction was the size. I get why it's not bigger, and maybe there's some worth in blowing it up, and I don't know. But yeah, let's talk a little about gameplay, Alex. So what did you think about the gameplay?
So I will tell you, Sean, I'm okay with a lot of these flip and fill games. Welcome 2, I think, is phenomenal. Karuba, I was less of a fan of. They're hit or miss for me. There are some that
Karuba?
really not. I don't like Karuba that much.
No. Karuba being a flip and fill?
Is that what it is? Am I thinking of a different game?
You're probably thinking of a different game.
Oh no.
Karuba's
That's
the bingo one where you're putting the tiles on your board.
Yeah,
there's no writing. Is there a writing version? Maybe there's a roll and write version.
My guess is it's not. My guess is it's exactly as you're describing it. It just feels kind of flip and fill-ish, right? You could have done it with drawing and it would have been the same game. I don't know. I don't remember Karuba, Sean. I remember not liking it as much as you did. So okay. I'm glad you're enjoying that with Chewy, but it's okay. Well, that undermines my entire statement. Let me actually talk about this game. What did I say at the start of this about I'm on hole 30 and I did a workout and I'm loopy? I take no responsibility for any contents of this review, which is based off of a place that I did on a Google sheet.
Oh boy.
Let me think about this gameplay-wise. I'm bad at this game, Sean.
Oh.
I'm really not good at this game. I will say one of the more intriguing things to me are the scoring objectives and how they work in this. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that I love in Isle of Skye are the rotating goals that you're trying to hit, and that you're going to hit them the same number of times. But you'll also know at a certain point they won't matter anymore. So this one thing that you've been building for, it's going to be a thing in the past after round 3 or round 4. You don't know when things are going to matter and why, but it doesn't mean you can always build strategically towards that thing. I think the game does something smart too with the ambushes, the monsters. It's a nice little monkey wrench that gets thrown into a person's game plan. That being said, I have played one of these games, Sean, where no ambushes occurred. Not one.
I almost had one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, which was interesting. It felt a little flat without them. I think having it in there is super interesting and useful because it gives you an opportunity to have some interaction in the game. And I think that's something a lot of these flip and fills or roll and writes don't do enough of, player interaction. So I liked that component of it. But I didn't come away from this game in love. I didn't come away from this game enamored. And I'm trying to piece together why, Sean. You have interesting decisions when the things come up. There's the objectives provide interesting options. You don't know what's coming next. You have to think on the fly. It does a lot of cool things. I don't know, Sean. It just felt a little flat in my experience. Did it feel flat to you? I mean, is this just a digital thing for me?
Yeah. So I think where I like a lot of roll and writes is there's a certain quickness to them and speed to them. And here, this lacked that because it felt like it took forever for me to draw the symbols of the different terrain types. So, like anytime it was a farmland, it's like 4 diagonal slashes. Super easy. And maybe you have to do like 3, 4, or 5 of them. Super easy. Then you have to do a village, which is like a triangle on top of, it's like a house, a triangle on top of like a square. Okay, that's not bad. And then you have to do a forest, which are 3 little trees. And it just, like if I do like 5 of them, it felt like it took me 7 minutes to do. It didn't. But that's how it felt. Like there was a certain tediousness to it. And I think for people that really enjoy drawing, I don't know that they'd necessarily feel that same way. But for someone like me who needs a lot of stimulation and doesn't get that from drawing necessarily, it just felt a little tedious. And I think there were certainly interesting decisions here and there. Here are the 2 objectives I need to be working on towards the end of the season. But this choice I make here will eventually give me a lot of points in the next season for this other one. Do I need to start worrying about that now? Well, maybe I won't. I don't know. It was good and I enjoyed it, and it will more than likely stay in the collection because I know Raquel liked it quite a bit. And maybe at some point down the line, Chewie might like it, but we're not there yet. She likes to draw a lot too. But I just wasn't crazy about it. I didn't hate it by any stretch of the imagination, and I would certainly play it again. And I would play it solo. I played it several times solo. I would love to see this as an app. I'd pay $3 for this as an app, and just tap the stuff and rotate the little Tetris polyomino. And that was the other kind of difficult thing. So when you have a polyomino that's printed on a card that you're allowed to rotate and you're allowed to flip, if you don't have great spatial skills, that could be difficult, and you have to grab the card and kind of flip it, and then someone else can't be looking at the card. So,
And I can see how those would all come up in person. I think the simple solution is what you're talking about with color, where if everyone's using the different colors, you don't have to do the terrain on there. Now, you lose some amount of the fun of the game, which is, I made my own map. Look at this. Here's a forest over here. Here's a river running through here. Here's a village. But if you want to cut down on the tediousness of it, you could certainly do a flat map. I remember back in my time at Gray Fox Games, no longer monochromatic wolf play experiences. With Harvest Dice, for instance, I would demo that game a lot at conventions, and it was interesting to see how people treated the challenge of, you need to draw a lettuce, a tomato, and a carrot.
Oh, that's right.
And some people would do really intricate, beautiful carrots, and some people would do literally a triangle. And both were fine in that game because you were doing one thing at a time. You weren't planting a shape of 4 or a zigzag or a different colored thing. So it was a lot easier to, if you wanted to be intricate with it, that's fine. You can finish drawing that while someone else takes their turn. Because the turns are simultaneous, if one person is being more intricate than all of the others or taking a lot longer, it slows down the game. So the benefit of playing this on, say, a Google Sheet was it's an S key. You type the S key or the F key or whatever key, and it fills it in. So you don't have that disparity there. The only difference comes into difference in time between folks making decisions.
Sure.
So I'll say, though, I do think they're interesting decisions here. Do I go for this terrain type? Do I go for a coin instead and try and get those residual points as the game goes on at the cost of filling in more territory? Which goals make sense to go for? If I've already gotten to this point on my board, do I need to just give up on this goal because I can't get it? This goal can get me a lot of points if I hit it multiple times. Am I well set up to do so? Will the cards come out for me to get it? Will this even fit? There's a lot of these kinds of different puzzly things that come up throughout the course of this game. And I think it's interesting, Sean. I feel like you might have enjoyed this game more if you played it the way I played it versus the way you played it.
Yeah, I think I would have. I definitely think I would have, which is interesting. But yeah, if I would prefer an app implementation, then yeah, it sounds like that's the case.
Bootleg Google Sheet, a pretty good option.
I mean, I compare this to, say, Gone Shown Clever or That's So Clever, where you're writing a number, or you're crossing stuff off, and that's it. But there's a lot more decision points to make on an individual turn when it's your turn, and even when it's not your turn, you're still, choosing from leftover dice. So I mean, like that's a roll and write. By the way, I tried to play that with Chewy too, and that did not work out.
Oh, there's no way. Oh, I wouldn't have even advised that.
Oh, it was better than Cartographers.
Really?
Yeah, because there's no objectives like in Cartographers you're trying to fulfill.
Sure.
So yeah, we got about halfway through a game of it, and then she kind of lost interest. So, but she did enjoy it, and then she asked to like finish our game. And anyway, but for the type of person I am and the type of gamer I am, I think I'm going to like a Gone Shown Clever more than Cartographers. But I feel like if you got more of an artsy side to you and you like drawing or doodling, I think, yeah, I mean, definitely give this game a shot. It's like, I don't want to turn people off of the game. I think it's a good game. It just didn't do a whole lot for me.
It didn't wow me, but I do think, Sean, it's funny in that I think if we'd switched experiences, if I had a physical copy of this and I tried it out with Abby, and I think Abby would enjoy this game, by the way. She tends to like these puzzly experiences. I think this would fit fantastically. If that was the case, I think I would probably have liked it a little more too. But playing it on the sheet version, it just kind of felt flat. It was just punching in things into this and filling it out, and it had its benefits. It was well done, but I think I would have enjoyed being a little more tedious with things and seeing what other people did. Oh, you put a troll in your forest or whatever else. I don't know how people would have handled it, but I think there's an opportunity for imagination, and the differences in those would have been entertaining to see. And Sean, you might know this from the physical copy. How many different objectives are there?
I want to say 16. So there's 4 types of objectives, so that it's not just, you're not randomly getting 4 objectives about forests, right? And so I think it's 4 per, and there are 4 types. So I think it's 16. It might be 20. It might be 5 per type.
Interesting. And I think that's a good thing. I think there's a good amount of replayability in this game for that reason. It feels a lot like a game like Isle of Skye, where those objectives can be very different, and how you play the game will feel different as a result. So I think it does a lot of things well, and I don't think I played the best version of this game for me, and I don't think you played the best version of this game for you. So there you have it. Did it feel thematic when you were playing on the table? I mean, obviously it's going to feel different for me, but I think in terms of the, hey, you're making a map, I would think it feels that way, right?
Sure, Alex.
No, not really.
Yeah. So, all right, let me give you some examples of some of the cards here, right? You've got, all right. So marshlands, Alex, marshlands. It gives you the option of doing a forest or water. Sure. All right, that makes sense. But then it's a 3x3 T, because that's what marshlands are. They're 3x3 Ts.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah. Or let's see. Here is a great river, which is a river. It's a water card, and it can either give you a little M on its side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 square M on its side, or it can give you 3 squares that are straight with a coin, as great rivers are known to.
Well, that's true. You do get trade-off of great rivers. The Mississippi has proven very plentiful for so many communities.
So, I mean, then there's the names of the different objectives, which I guess make some sense. The Canal Lake scores reputation star for each water space adjacent to at least one farm space. Earn 1 reputation star for each farm space adjacent to at least 1 water space. It's fine. It doesn't need to be thematic. I don't expect high levels of thematic osity from my roll and writes or draw and draws or flip and sketch or etch a sketch, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
John, I had another question for you that I was going to mention in gameplay, but I forgot to get to.
Oh, okay.
Does this deserve to be a Kennerspiel nominee? In terms of, does it belong here or should it have been a Spiel?
It should have been a spiel, man.
I think so too.
I just don't get it. I don't get how this. I just don't get it. I mean, I think it's probably wrong to think of Kennerspiel as heavier in weight. That's not really what it's about. But still, like a past winner or not, or at least a nominee. What, Concordia? Like this doesn't feel like
not remotely Concordia.
So I don't know. Yeah, this feels like a past Spiel nominee. So
yeah, I'd agree with you. And yeah, I mean, I that was my impression. I was shocked to see this in the Kennerspiel category. Shocked. Even as light as it's gone, this feels especially light for that category. So
yeah.
Anyway, on to the guild. Baker Mitchell says Cartographers is excellent. I've not been a big fan of roll and writes, but I started playing Cartographers on a BGG guild forum last week, and once I finished drawing the first block, I was hooked. I've enjoyed both the light strategy and the drawing. I give this one a solid Ducal 5. I bet Clemens Franz would have the coolest map. And just as an FYI, we'll get into this in a second, but we do rate things here at the Dukes of Dice on a 1 to 6 scale.
And then BJ from Board Game Gumbo said Cartographers was good, but not great. I enjoyed the puzzle aspect of the flip and write, but honestly, I compare it to Scariabia, and I've had more fun playing that one. I'm not downing it since I have only played one play of Cartographers. However, so I'd off the cuff rank it as a strong 3, not something I need to own, but something I won't turn down a play of. I'm confused about the Scariabia, Scarabia. I think that's how you say it. I've played this. I don't remember it being a roll and write. I thought it was more like Karuba. Maybe he's doing the same thing you were doing.
Maybe. It could be.
You're placing tiles, I thought. Huh. All right. Well, Alex, let's head into our final thoughts then for Cartographers. I'll start just because why not? I figured you have another bite of salmon.
No, go for it. Nope.
Oh, okay.
Not gonna have any more
All
salmon. Nope. I got the whole rules explanation on the next game to do all that.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, like you mentioned, we rate things here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale, where a 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10, and a 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. This is not going to be a 5 or a 6 for me. It's certainly not a 2, but it's not a 2 by any stretch of the imagination. It's either a 3 or a 4. 3 is game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. 4 is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. And, you know, part of it is I take issues with a bunch of midweight Euros. I used to be a bigger fan of midweight Euros than I am now. It has to do something really special. I think the same has to be said for roll and writes or flip and draws or whatever. And something like Gone Shown Clever, does that for me, and I enjoy it quite a bit. This just doesn't quite do it. And I thought I was going to like this a lot more than I did. And so for me, it's a 3. Game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation. But if you like drawing, you like doodling, and you like roll and writes, especially, it's probably going to rate a lot higher for you. I think it's a better game than I'm giving it credit for, but it just didn't do a lot for me. But I will certainly play it again. It's a 3. It's probably objectively closer to a 4, but as far as my enjoyment of it, it was a 3.
Well, it's me, Objective Duke Alex, here to save the day.
Oh boy.
And I will give this one a 4.
All right.
Because I intend on scooping it up or having access to it, because it's one that, with the puzzly nature of it, with the interesting decisions, with the fact that it's a good one to get folks. Possibly, I don't know if it's pure gateway. It's maybe just a little notch above it. But it's one that you can play with folks who are not hardcore, intense gamers, and I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of, especially with people drawing and making their own maps. Just make sure you have the colored pencils handy. I think this is well done. I'm not in love with it. I'm not over the moon for it. I don't think it deserves its nomination, but I can respect what it does, and I think it does what it's trying to do reasonably well, off of projecting that I would enjoy this more drawing rather than typing in spots on a Google Sheet. So there you go. That's our review of Cartographers, a role-player tale. Sean gives this one a 3, and I give this one an objective 4. Next up, we're taking A Journey to Space for yet another Kennerspiel nominee. You've seen trick-taking done in so many forms, the classics, like a game like Hearts or Spades. You've seen games like Skull King or Fox in the Forest. It's been done cooperatively, competitively. But has it been done quite like this? We're taking a look at The Crew.
The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9, is a new game from Kosmos. It's designed by economist Thomas Singh, Alex. You know he's an economist?
I did not know, and I'm about to eat more food, so don't ask me more questions.
You got it, Alex. You got it. So yeah, this is a cooperative trick-taking game that plays out differently from round to round. In fact, you're playing numerous missions in the base game. There are 50 missions, I believe. Yeah, there's 50 different missions that get progressively harder. And so the idea here is that you start at 1 and you kind of work your way up. And once you've completed a mission, you can go on to the next. I suppose there's maybe some pick and choose things that you can do. Maybe you can start at a higher level once you've played for a while. I don't know. It's kind of up to you, and kind of talk about that. But this is a trick-taking game. There are 4 suits of cards from 1 to 9 each. And then there's also 4 rocket cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, that are a sort of trump card. And in this game, you are you're a crew. You're a spacefaring crew that's initially training on Earth and learning how to simulate blast-offs and whatnot. And then you're going into space and you're doing space stuff, Alex. So how does this game play out? Well, you're gonna deal out the cards, and then whoever has been dealt the Rocket 4 is the commander. So that person reveals the Rocket 4, they get the commander. So depending on the mission that you're on, you have different objectives you need to complete. So there may be one where a chit is drawn out of the bag or the pile that says someone has to win the pink 4. They have to take it in a trick. There may be multiples of these. There may be certain conditions like this particular objective has to be completed first, or this particular objective has to be completed last, or they need to be completed in a certain order. And then starting with the commander, they're going to take the objective of their choice after they've seen their hand. If there are any objectives left, the player to the left of the commander will take the next one, and so on until all the objectives have been taken. So then the commander is going to lead the first trick. And I should say, if you're not familiar with trick-taking games, basically one person leads a trick, they play a card out of hand. Everyone is then required to follow suit if they have it. And the player with the highest card in that suit is going to win that suit, take all the cards, win that trick, take all the cards, and then they get to lead the next trick. So let's say, Alex, that you took the objective that was pink 6. I happen to have the pink 6. So that means I know that I have to get it to you in such a way, or play it in such a way that you're going to have won that trick. So if you lead with the pink 9, which is the highest pink card, we're all working cooperatively, so no one's going to trump that necessarily. I can safely play my pink 6, knowing that as a team, we're not going to do anything stupid, and you're going to take the pink 6. We've completed that objective. Great. Perfect. Let's say instead, Alex, you had the pink 6 in hand, and that was your objective. That's a little bit more difficult because now you've got to play in such a way that someone's going to lead with pink or let you win pink. So there's some interesting things there. But there's a way as the crew that we can communicate with one another. We're allowed to give each other one piece of information each per round, not per trick, but per round. And the way that you do that is you take a card from your hand and you indicate that it is either the only card you have of that suit or that color, or it is the highest card, or it is the lowest card. And based on that information, as a group, you can kind of deduce certain things that's going to help your particular play. So, yeah, if you screw things up and you don't complete an objective, you can go and stop playing right then and reshuffle, restart the round. Otherwise, once you complete all your objectives, you can go on to the next scenario. There are some kind of stranger missions out there. What I covered kind of covers 95% of the different mission types you'll see, but that's basically how you play the crew. Alex, what were your expectations for the crew, the quest for Planet 9?
As soon as this one came out, because people know how fanatical I am about the mind, people would be telling me, this is one you are going to love. This is one you have to play. This is the mind, but with a lot more gamery structure to it.
But an actual game instead of just an activity.
Okay. Right off the bat, huh? Right off the bat. All right. I had that impression. I had the impression that I was really going to like this. This was going to be something special, kind of the next evolution of this type of game, and a fascinating twist on trick-taking. I like trick-taking. I should say, I like trick-taking games a lot. And my expectations for this one were fairly high as a result. What about you, Sean?
Well, I'm going to one-up you, Alex. I love trick-taking games. I don't just like them a lot. I love them, Alex.
I'm trying to be objective, Sean.
Well, that's fine. So yeah, it's interesting. This kind of flew under my radar in a lot of ways until I finally started hearing some buzz on it, and I was just kind of late to the party. You okay? Okay, Alex is choking.
Wrong pipe. Water went down the wrong pipe. I'm okay.
Wow. Okay, good. I was worried there. I mean, if this were space, that could be it, you know? Okay. We've got an Apollo 13 situation.
Okay. What? I'm very confused.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, yeah, it's okay. So, what was I saying? The crew. I like trick-taking. No, I love trick-taking games. Flew under the radar. Oh, right, sure. We need another quarantine caveat. Do we not? So, Alex, you and I played this game together online on Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
With BJ. With BJ and Ellie. My buddy Ellie joined us too. So that was good. But that's part of the caveat. I will say that I have a physical copy. I got this just the other week. Matthew did a delivery from Empire, brought it to my door, and I kept trying to get Mariah and Raquel to play it with me, and they kept blowing me off. Not so much Raquel, more Mariah. She knows what she did.
You could have brought Chewie in.
I could have brought Chewie in. There is an alternate player or a 2-player variant, I guess, but that doesn't sound interesting to me. So that's our caveat. So I can talk a little bit about the quality of the components and things like that. I also played this again, 3 players with Ellie and his buddy Dan, who I met in Phoenix for Arizona Game Fair a couple of years back. And so yeah, so I've played a good amount of this, and I like the idea of trick-taking games. I like the idea of cooperative trick-taking games. I like Fox in the Forest duet. So yeah, I had pretty high expectations once I actually knew anything about this game.
Rulebook, Sean. I didn't touch the rulebook. Did you at any point touch the rulebook of this, the physical one?
Yes. So during our first plays together, because we probably played 15 games of this when it was the 4 of us. So I didn't really look at the rule book. I had downloaded an English version of the missions so that we could read the mission flavor text.
The inspiring flavor text.
Here's a quick spoiler for our thematic review. Not so much. So, but during my second round of plays, where I probably played another 8 or 9 games. About 8 or 9 games. There was, reading the rule book there was a question about one of the missions. I mean, the rules are pretty simple. There's some weirder scenarios that you may need some rulings on, but it's fine. It's interesting. It's a double directional rule book, I suppose, where if you look at it one way, it's the rule book, and then if you flip it and turn it around, it becomes the logbook. Which I've never really seen that before, unless it's a rule book that has 2 different languages. So that's kind of interesting.
Weird. How are the chits and some of the other little components in the physical version?
Yeah, they're fine. So decent. Your probably typical thickness on your chit quality. The card quality is decent. They are linen finish. They're not the thinnest. They're not the thickest. I will probably wind up sleeving them because, other spoiler alert, this will be staying in the collection, even if I can't play with Raquel and Mariah. But I like it.
But do you love it? Do you want some more of it?
Should I say whether I love it now?
No, probably not. No, we should talk through gameplay. That is the next step of this process. I don't want to jump the gun again, Sean.
All right, let's not do that. So yeah, what are your thoughts on gameplay, Alex?
It's real good. I mean, to keep it short, it's real good. So, what I think the comparison to the Mind is interesting, and I can see where it comes into play. What this doesn't have, and I haven't played this again physically, so this might be the case in more of a physical version of this game than an online version, because I can imagine that there would be nothing worse than an online implementation of the Mind. It makes no sense. It would not work. It does not. It loses the entire spirit of the game. The fact that you can play this thing competently online tells you something. So there's so much more strategy and there's a lot more to it in terms of layering at least elements of depth compared to the Mind. You don't have that kind of relational mechanic that comes into play, but I do get this whole idea of working together and moving forward through missions and feeling really tense about things. Sean, I will tell you this. In the Mind, if someone screws something up, for the most part, you're kind of forgiving of it because you're all trying to pull off a magic trick together. If someone screws something up in a dumb way in this, and it can and does happen, BJ from Board Game Gumbo, you are a little less forgiving, a little more annoyed, because the setup to get into a round is so much more, and without seeing someone else's hand, it can feel obvious what the right move is.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think what's interesting is it doesn't have the same sort of relational nature to it, as best I can tell. It doesn't have the same sort of bringing people together, but it does have the kind of high-five moments of, hey, we pulled off this really difficult mission together. We needed to get this mission, and this mission in this exact order. And sure enough, we pulled it off. It seemed unlikely, but we did it. It doesn't feel like quite the miracle that the Mind does, but it still provides some nice highs. And the structure of it, this kind of increasing difficulty and the missions being provided that give you a nice variety of things. For instance, I like the fact that they have the one mission where you ask people before this mission, are you feeling well or are you feeling sick? Based on whether they think they can win tricks or not. And you need to pick one person, the commander does, who won't win any tricks that round. It's a cool little variation. And they have a lot of these other little wrinkles and twists on what seems like a fairly simple formula. So I appreciated that in the game. The evolution of missions was nice, and it does come together really well for the fact it's simple. It's simple mechanically for the most part, but there's decent depth for those simple mechanics, and I think it makes the most of what it has.
Yeah, so I think there's both a strength and a weakness, and it's the same thing. It's the replayability here where there are a bunch of these different missions with different objectives. Some are kind of rehashes of the same, but with increased difficulty or more missions more objectives you have to complete in a particular mission, or you have to do in a certain order or whatever. But at the same time, where do you jump in? Where do you choose to jump in? So I think of another trick-taking game. It's not cooperative, but it has changing objectives. And that is it Indulgence or Indulgences? from Restoration Games.
I think it's Indulgence.
Indulgence, okay, which I liked quite a bit. Still in the collection. Haven't played it in a while, but I like it quite a bit because there is that variability of there being these different, I think they're like papal decrees and sins or whatever. I forget what they're called. And you just shuffle up the cards, and here are the rules that you're trying to follow. And you don't have to choose, okay, which mission should we start today? Do we start all the way from the beginning? Hey, do you guys remember where we left off last time? Did we finish mission 15 or not? Or, hey, I finished mission 15, but we have this new player here. I guess we should probably start from the beginning, right? And so that creates a little bit of a difficulty in my mind in terms of how replayable this game is going to be. So, for instance, if I ever do play this with Raquel and Mariah, I don't know that we're going to get much past mission 10. Neither of them have played a lot of trick-taking games or necessarily really enjoy trick-taking games. And I think that at some of the higher levels, even really expert trick-taking players are going to struggle with some of the more advanced missions. But what I do think is difficult too is that if you have someone who isn't quite great at trick-taking games and it's a competitive game, that can create some problems, but mostly it's a problem for them. Whereas if you have someone that doesn't quite understand why they shouldn't have played the card they just did, like they don't understand the idea of, I need to slough off this particular suit from my hand to set myself up so that I can play this card off suit. If you don't understand how to do that, you're not going to be able to play some of these missions.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're dead right. And because of that lack of accessibility, it doesn't sing for me quite the way the Mind does. The Mind, to me, sings on so many levels. You can play it with anyone, and you have this unique depth of experience. This feels unique. It doesn't feel like something that's been done before to me. This multiplayer cooperative trick-taking element, it feels unique, but it doesn't have that same kind of anyone can come to the table for it. Now, that being said, there are plenty of gamers who don't like the Mind because it feels objectiveless. It feels like not a game. It feels stupid. It gets dismissed. If you feel that way about the Mind, the Crew could absolutely be for you. You should not feel that way about the Crew.
No, not at all.
There are enough pieces of information out there, clear objectives, strategies, knowable information. You'll still maybe get frustrated when people screw it up, but it will feel much more like a game to you if you're one of this very silly group of people that thinks the Mind isn't a game. So I would say this is, if I know these games have been compared, or at least we're comparing them, I would say that if you don't enjoy the Mind, I would still give this one a shot if cooperative trick-taking seems like something you might enjoy. Sean, if this game had a trader mechanic, how do you think that would go down?
Well, terribly, because it's already difficult enough to win.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, there would have to be some, I don't know. Sure, let's work on that. I'll work on a variant.
I mean, you already did it for Happy Salmon. Why not for this?
Did I? Or did I just body slam Anthony? Is that what it was?
I was talking about the one time at Empire where you... So for folks... Now I feel like I have to go into this tangent. For folks who don't know, Happy Salmon is a game about connection and wonder, and it comes in a salmon-shaped bag, and it's an amazing little game. It's the only game, by the way, I took with me when I traveled around the world. Fun fact. So it's a game where you have 4 movements you're doing. You're doing the Happy Salmon, which is kind of this little arm slappy kind of thing. You do the high five, you do the switcheroo, and you do the fist bump. And in this moment, I think I had mentioned something about, what if this game had a trader mechanic or whatever else? And you decided for that round you were going to be the trader.
Yeah.
And so I was going, high five, high five, high five in the game. And you were like, yeah, high five. And then I went over and you were like, nope. And then I came in again because I'm an idiot.
Yep.
And you went, nope. I think I did it 3 times.
It was 3. It was 3 times.
And then I switched to a different card, which was switcheroo. And I was like, switcheroo. And you're like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then I tried to move and you did not move. And I certainly was not going to be able to move you, even if I wanted to. So that was the funniest game of Happy Salmon I think I've ever played, because we both did very badly, by the way. Neither of us won that particular round.
Totally worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. It was a very memorable moment. That being said, that would make this game terrible. So don't play this with the trader, would be my suggestion. Sean, is there enough variability and interest in these missions in your mind?
No, I think you could play it with a trader. Hold on. Because there'd have to be some tweaks, but it'd kind of be like Merlin in the Resistance, where if you lose, you have a chance to pick the traitor, and if you're correct, you still win.
Oh. Do you assign a new traitor after each mission?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That could work.
There's a way to do it. I mean, you have to do some other tweaks, but anyway. Yeah, no, there's well, so that's the thing. Do you need variability? I like Hearts. There's no variability in Hearts, right? It's just it's tactical gameplay. I'm also at one point I was probably much better at Hearts. I haven't played Hearts in a long time. But same with like Diamonds, right? You don't need variability with a lot of card games. Doesn't mean variability is bad, and certainly like I mentioned before, I like the variability of Indulgence. And I like the variability here. And I think if you crave variability, I think this game will give it to you. Although, like I said before, there's probably a handful of missions that are just, reiterating the same things, just different amounts of objectives, different orders of objectives being completed and whatnot. I think it's fine.
I think it's there, and I like the change in the missions, and it feels like enough, and it feels like it's upping the stakes constantly. It's adding more different twists and turns in there. I like it a lot. I will say on a different topic, Sean, I have played this at 3, 4, and 5. 5 is really hard to advance past missions, but it is fun. It does increase the possibility that one person doesn't know what the heck they're doing. BJ.
Sure.
But yeah, it's still fun. 4, I think, is the sweet spot for me for this game. I think that's probably where I liked it the best.
Yeah.
It's still pretty good at 3. I don't know what your experience was playing that way, Sean.
Yeah, I liked it at 3, but I agree. I think 4 feels better, especially for a trick-taking game. There's enough. I feel like the problem with 3 is that you just have too much information, and 4 is really that sweet spot of there's enough stuff that you don't know, because you have a couple fewer cards in 4 than you would 3, right? So,
fair enough. All right, let's talk theme. Maybe let's not talk theme. No, it.
So for each mission,
read one of these, Sean.
In the logbook, it gives you some flavor text. So let's take a look here. All right. So, congratulations. This is mission 1, by the way. Congratulations. You have been chosen from a vast array of applicants to participate in the most important and dangerous adventure that mankind has ever faced, the search for Planet 9. You barely arrive at the training facility before you have already begun your first training phase, team building, and then you play, and you have one objective.
There you go.
So in our play, we read all of these before we played each mission. Did it make you feel like we were strapped into the cockpit of some sort of space module and we were flipping dials and twisting knobs? And did you feel that way, Alex?
I didn't. And I don't know if it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter with this game. It doesn't hurt it. There's no disconnect there. Do you think there's a better theme they could have had, Sean?
Well, let me ask you, if you wanted to experience being a space crew, would you say play the crew or go to space camp?
Go to space camp. Having done both, go to space camp.
Yes. We have both done both.
Yes. Wow. Yikes. So let me think about that further. Is there a better theme that could have worked here? I don't know.
No, it's a trick-taking game. Like, think of Skull King. You're pirates and there are mermaids and there are...
And it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's a trick-taking game.
And guess what? It doesn't matter here either. So, anyway, the guild did have some thoughts to say. Evan Scussel says, I find the crew to be just okay. As a trick taker, it's nothing special. You can't play off suit, and you can't play a rocket if you have the lead suit in hand. The only element to the game that's unique is the shared incentives of making someone you want to win the trick at the right moment in the round. That's novel, and it's interesting and fun when you can pull that off, but the gameplay leaves something to be desired. I want more creativity and more room for exploration in my trick takers. Plus, the crew takes too long to ramp up. You can easily play for 90 minutes or more and not even get to mission 10, and honestly, the first 7 to 10 missions are crap. They're boring and tedious. I suppose you can just jump right into a higher level mission, but then you lose the thin narrative and confuse new players. For me, this is a 3, and one that I'll look to sell out of my collection. I just don't see anyone in my family choosing this over Skull King or Stickle. I don't know Stickle. Do you know Stickle?
I've heard of it, but I have never played it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it definitely doesn't replace Skull King for me as my favorite trick-taking game. I wouldn't even replace Diamonds. Anyway, that's more final thoughts. BJ, with whom we played, says, I've been playing the crew live and now on Tabletop Simulator since BGG Con, and it's one of the best trick-taking games I've played in a long time. Solid 5 for me, probably even a 6. I have a copy, and it's staying in my collection.
There you go.
All right, Alex, I went first in final thoughts, so why don't you go first this time?
So look, I think this one stands on its own merits, but it does suffer for me for being compared to the Mind. If I'm thinking of a fun, cooperative, not trick-taking, but kind of card game in this vein, I'm probably going to pull the Mind out more times than not. But if I'm at a convention, I'm playing with gamers, there's a desire to kind of play through these missions, I like this game a lot, Sean. It does a lot of things really well. The variability in the missions keeps things interesting. The missions themselves are difficult. Even the first 10, which Evan, I know, described as tedious, to me, they weren't tedious. They were challenging, at least the way we were playing. Maybe it was BJ. I don't know. Could be. But no, I dug this one a lot. I just don't think it quite hits those same heights. So for me, that ultimately puts it at something closer to a 5. A great game. Will rarely turn down a play of it. And I will rarely turn down a play of this if someone suggests it, wants to play it. I am actively seeking out a copy of this myself. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. That being said, it doesn't top the Mind for me. It doesn't come close to toppling that kind of game. And, if it does cooperative trick-taking better than Fox and the Forest Duet, I feel. But I do enjoy competitive trick-takers quite a bit. I don't know. This does a lot of things really well, Sean. I think a 5's a worthy score.
Huh. I didn't think you were going to say a 5. After your little lead in there, it sounded like it was going to be a 4.
No. I'm higher on it than that. I can recognize I'm higher on it than that. I just know it doesn't quite hit the same heights as the Mind, but the Mind is a slam dunk 6 for me.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to give this a 5 as well. A great game. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. A great game will rarely turn down a play of it. A 4, just for reference, is a good game worth playing just all the time, belongs in the duchy. And so I could give this a provisional 5. It's not going to get played here at the house. Raquel and Mariah are not big trick-taking fans. And in my gaming bag, I always have Skull King. If I'm in the, it is different. This is different. It's novel. The cooperative nature is novel. I don't know. I feel like I'm wavering too much, and I think I'm going to have to give it a 4. I was pretty prepared to give it a 5, but I'm going to, 4 is a good game worth playing just all the time. Belongs in the duchy, and I feel like there are going to be more opportunities to take out other trick takers. In fact, I'm curious to go back and play Indulgence. Because it was a really solid game, and it does that changing objectives thing that the crew does. It's competitive instead of cooperative. But I'm gonna give it a 4. It's a very solid game. I mean, it's good. It's very good, but I'm gonna give it a 4.
Are there any trick-taking games in your top 10? Because you love this genre, but I don't think there's anyone that's cracked it.
Not in my top 10. Skull King is a 6. Diamonds is probably a high 5. But no, nothing that's actually in my top 10. So with this type of game, they feel like a more traditional card game. And like, think of like a card game that's in my top 10, Motainai. It's not a traditional card game by any stretch of the imagination. And so there's something a little more, I don't know, there's something more to it.
Okay.
At some point I'll learn Bridge. Is Bridge technically a trick-taking game?
I don't know enough about Bridge to tell you. I do like Euchre a lot.
Yeah, I like Euchre too.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Bridge in my old age I will certainly maybe get into. Maybe sooner. I don't know. But I probably need to learn Bridge at some point. So that's going to do it for our review of The Crew. A 5 from me and a 5. No, wait, just kidding. It's a 4 from Sean.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right. Finally, our Dukes Double Take. We're taking a look at episode 202, The Game is a Hoof, where we reviewed Detective, a modern crime board game.
I gave this a 6. I said that my group playing this, we had so much fun with this game. There was a problem I foresaw, whether or not this game could maintain the level of content as new iterations of it came out. I said this was something that I'd be fine playing through this maybe once a year. It's not something you can play over and over again like other favorites of mine like Zolkin or Kemet. And as a result, I had to kind of judge this on a different scale. There were incredible debates that we had, these great aha moments. Overall, it was just a fantastic narrative experience. And then you, Alex, also gave this a 6, but a provisional 6. So you had said that it would have definitely been along the same thoughts that I had if you hadn't had to replay the third case. You said that you got some of the same highs as when you played Pandemic Legacy Season 1, but that, again, that frustrating thing about Case 3 really had you hesitating giving this a full 6. And you said, well, maybe if Case 4 and 5 hold up, then I'll give it that full 6. But overall, you thought it was a brilliantly done system. And then also Abby jumped in. She didn't join us for the full review. She kind of gave her final thoughts, and she gave it a yeah, which is a 5 because she thoroughly enjoyed it. So Alex, Detective, a modern crime board game where you're going through this narrative experience trying to solve a crime cooperatively. Have you played this since the review?
I am stunned that I have to report that I have not.
Mm-hmm.
It is staring me in the face. And so here's the deal. There was a time during last summer after we reviewed this where I said, hey, do you want to play cases 4 and 5? And Abby said, I don't know. It might be better for when it's cold out. And it's wintertime and it's gloomy and it's gray. This is the perfect, like, stay at home, stay inside kind of game. Let's play at that. And then we just didn't. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
I brought up just last night, hey, let's play through a case. And she's like, that takes 2 hours, right? You don't have the time for that because I had a family dinner to get to because my cousin graduated from high school via Zoom, which was fun. So we had a graduation dinner celebrating her and didn't have the time to do it. So I intended to get this one back to the table to give a more full perspective. And Sean, I much like many times on this show, I did not fulfill my homework. So I am sad to report I have not. My thoughts on the game remain the same because they kind of have to. It has not diminished in my mind. I don't see the fact that we haven't played it as a knock. Sometimes that's the case with games, that it was forgettable or lost track of it, or I just don't care. That wasn't the case with this one. It was just we were so excited about it. We wanted to make sure it was the exact right time to play. And that sort of held us back. The game was so good it made it harder to play. So I think the 6 has to stick, at least for the moment, Sean. That may change. We have the LA Crimes expansion, which we will give a try as well. Have you played through those yet?
No. And so like you, I have not played it since the review. We got through, I believe it was case 4. And I acknowledged at the time that I knew this wasn't going to be something that got played all the time. It's a narrative game. Once you've played a case, that's really you're done with that case. And there are multiple case files per game. They're linked. And what was interesting was when I played this with Raquel, Mariah, Rory, and Marie. And we made a huge production out of it. We had like a projector putting like a screen up. We were all on our apps. Like it was a huge production. And at one point, because we had plans to play it again, it was difficult because we had to have Chewy with us. Normally Mariah would be the babysitter. And so we went over to Rory and Marie's, and then, Chewy would be doing her own thing, and then she'd want to help. And then, so it was kind of difficult. And then we learned that Marie, who said she loved the game, was like, yeah, you know what? I really don't like this game.
Oh no.
And she kind of gave us the okay to play without her. And yeah, but we couldn't do it at Empire because you need peace and quiet for it. And now so much time has gone past, it would be really hard to kind of jump back into it. But man, I really want to, and I want to play the other scenarios that are out there. I'm still going to keep this as a 6, again, recognizing at the time that this isn't something that's going to get a bunch of replays consistently throughout the year. It's possible that maybe it's something that just Raquel, Mariah, and I do. Although I do think you benefit from having more people so you can avoid tunnel vision. And also kind of prevent a person from kind of running away as the alpha gamer. I'm not going to say who that might be, but don't want that to happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Way to know your own self, Sean. To thine own self be true. So
there you go.
Yeah. Hey, it's Boxcars still, baby. It's been a while since we've had a Boxcars on this show.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. BJ will kind of bring down that score though a little bit.
He doesn't count.
He's wow, geez. Dismissive Duke Alex makes his return. So about Detective, he says, it was my favorite game experience the year it came out. The expansions, LA Crimes, was even better, which is unusual for a board game. And even though I have limited play since I don't own it, and because of the nature of the game, I still rank it as a strong 5.
That doesn't bring it down much.
Yeah, just a bit.
Oh, well, cool. That's it, Sean. We keep it at a 6, but will you have, by a year from now, will you have finished all of the cases?
I really hope so. If nothing else, I will at least suggest that we play through the LA one. Because then we're not having to kind of remember everything and catch back up. It makes me sad. I'm very, very sad that we didn't complete it. And I feel like it's something where you need to play through all the case files in pretty quick proximity, probably within a week, at most a week of each other.
I think you're right. And it's a hurdle to jumping back in. It feels kind of like Pandemic Legacy Season 1, 2, where just the weeks piled up and it just became too big of a hurdle to finish. Right. It wasn't from lack of desire so much as
no
getting all 4 of you together and anyway, it becomes a burden in and of itself. So yeah, that's a bummer, but I think there's a path back, and I anticipate we'll have played this. Cases 4 and 5, I'm going to commit. I will have played this by this time next year. Can we do a Duke's double take? Is that a thing?
Sure. Why not? Why not, Alex? We can do whatever we want. We run this show.
I'm going to totally forget. We're not going to remember by June of next year, June of 2021, whatever horrors that year brings. So who knows? Anyway, that's going to do it for the Duke's double take, but we're not done quite yet because, Sean, we have the best of the rest.
We sure do, Alex. We sure do.
These are the rest of the top 6 for episode names. We'll start off with Jimmy DM90, who suggested Map the Stars, talking about, of course, the mapping in Cartographers and the stars coming into play with the crew. Chris Holmes suggested to boldly go where no elf has gone before, referencing Cartographers yet again, Star Trek, of course, and Cartographers. Wait, did I already say that? I'm confused.
Sure? Yes. So Cartographers, Star Trek, and Cartographers.
Yes, good job. Good job. Nicely done.
And then Blaine Miley suggested Starsky and Untouched, which is a reference to Starsky and Hutch, which was what, a 70s buddy cop crime show. And there was also, there was like a reboot in the 2000s, wasn't there?
There was. I didn't see it, but yeah.
Is Untouched kind of referring to like unknown lands and undiscovered stuff?
I'm sure there's a very intelligent reason on the guild, but I didn't copy it over, Sean, and I just don't feel like it. I just don't. So I'm sorry, Blaine. It was very clever. It made the top 6, but I just don't feel like explaining it.
Wow. Okay. So real quick, this next one from Matthew S.
Yes.
It was predicated on you knowing Fiddler on the Roof.
I know the reference. I know the song.
I figured you did. Yeah, I figured you did. Okay, go ahead.
So to be clear, I haven't seen Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, you haven't?
No, but I do know I know this song and If I Were a Rich Man. And the song he references in his name is Map Maker, Make Me a Map, which only references cartographers, but I felt like putting it in one singing one.
Find me a no, dang it. I was going to say find me a map me a map. Dang it. Find me. Forget it. I give up. I like map me a map. That's
yeah, map me a map.
Well, if you're trying to find a map somewhere in the house and you're trying to show someone, you have to map out where the map is.
Map me a map.
Hey, bro, could you map me a map?
It sounds like a very common situation that would come up frequently enough to be sung about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, Paul G. This is more a visual one. He suggested The Colonists, but what I need everyone to do now is take colon and then put a colon in between that and is.
It's really clever, actually.
It is, but we're right now we're an auditory medium.
Sure.
And that's more of a visual. Can you explain that one for us, Alex?
I can't explain that one without looking back to the guild. Right. It has Detective, a modern crime board game which has a colon in the title. We were talking about The Crew, Quest for Planet 9, which has a colon in the title. And we were also talking about Cartographers, a role-player tale, which was yet again, a colon in the title.
Yeah. And then you've got, I think, too, with the colonists, that seems like a bit of The Crew related. But then also it's colon. It separates the colon of colonists.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like colon is.
And look,
that makes sense.
And there are some people whose profession it is to map out colons. It's just a thing.
That's true. You get a nice little arthroscopic camera and you're off to the races. The colon races.
And that person who's doing that job is doing some very good detective work.
That's true.
Okay, I'm done.
Yikes.
I'm just completely toast.
That's going to do it, Alex. We are done. Thank you to our guild members for your amazing help. That will do it for episode 227. Again, thanks to the Namefather for titling it North, Sleuth, East, and Quest. Until next time, this is Sean, who is also present. Call back.
And Alex, who is not present.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on June 4th, 2020. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. And find us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers, LLC. You can find out more about Arcane Wonders, find titles at ArcaneWonders.com, and learn all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.